You gotta love that announcement.
Yeah.
And I am going to sit there and say, welcome to Marketing Mindset Mastery with my host, Maureen Mason. And our special guest today with us is John Hanson. John, if you would be so kind to wait a few minutes, I will bring you in shortly, but I'm going to let you hang out with me because it's so much simpler this way than putting you in the back room. Saves us a little bit of lag time. But we're going to walk unroll on the topic for today. Really, we're going to be talking about something that's really, I feel, is prevalent and important to everybody. So before I dive into that, the guest is, like I said, John Hanson, and I want to make sure I have it correct. Is it the scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset is our topic for today? Just to make
That's
sure
right.
I got it. Okay, just want to make sure I got it correct because sometimes I do typos, and I'm known as for various different queen titles, but I don't want to sit there and see what that one is for today's show. But that's why we have people on our team who make up the differences in when we do something like that. So we always hire people to fill in those gaps that we are lacking in. So that's sort of my tip of the week for just over there. But we're going to have some 3 top tips of the week first, and then we're going to bring in our very talented guest. And I am so sorry for any interruptions, but I'm on my computer, and so you know how those pop-ups come in. So hopefully they won't interfere with the show. But long story short, the 3 top tips for this week is step 1, because it all has to do with positioning your offer. So step 1 is positioning your offer. And your offer is like your sales pitch. So you need to be very clear on what it is you're presenting your audience or your target market. There are so many different terms, but they're very similar. Okay. So 1, you need to be able to discuss the main problem that you solve. What is the number 1 role and what is the number 1 problem that you solve? That's going to really help you in 1, targeting your audience, and also in sharing that information so it's really crystal clear to your audience. 2, you're going to need to share of the value. That includes the name of your deliverables and your price. So your deliverables are, some people will call it like worksheets or videos or, things that, if you're going to be in let's say you're a coach, okay, and you're going to offer worksheets and videos and courses, in your courses. And you might even do like group calls as a deliverable. And then you're going to name your price. That's simple, easy. You can even create one of the there's 2 pricing points you're going to want to share in that piece. You're going to first want to share what the actual value is. There's usually a higher in value, and what the real price is that they're going to be sharing with them for that on that webinar or podcast or whatever it is that you're doing for that event, because you want to be able to make them clear that they're getting a huge savings, and then create that, and then you want to be able to create that sense of urgency to purchase the offer, and then share a link with your which is going to be part of your call to action process. So you want to be able to have a short little description that describes what your offer is as far as what are they getting purchasing. And then you want to create that sense of urgency about when's the deadline to purchase the offer. It's not like, I wouldn't say muscle them down to the ground or anything like that, but by any means, but just, gently say, okay, you have this much time to get this deal. And it usually is a sales tactic, but that's just a part. Only 3 of the steps that I share on my sales pitch formula script, and it's really super easy to fill out. It's a template. If anyone would like it, I will be happy to email you the link for it. It is marievmason@gmail.com, and it will also be on our YouTube channel, which I will share at the end of the show, and I will also have it on my website soon, as well as my Liberty Virtual Solutions group page. You will also see it all in those areas. So without further ado, I'd love to be able to present John Hanson, who's patiently waiting. And just to give you a little bit of background information, because let's face it, we all don't know each other yet. So I know him because I've had conversations with him, but you haven't met him yet. So let me introduce you properly. the first thing you want to know is he also is in the military. And we want to also thank you very much for being in service. By the way, we applaud everybody who is serving our country, because especially in this day and age, we need every able body to help protect us. So we appreciate that. And it doesn't matter where and how long you've been in the military, it's appreciated. So I want to thank you that personally. And to all the military personnel, we really appreciate you being there, willing to serve our country, as well as helping sacrifice time with your families, because let's face it, it's a thankless job sometimes. So we're wanting to give you a chance to say thank you. So giving us a chance to say thank you to you. I do have to reword my wording sometimes, but anyway, you get the point. He also has a healthcare background, a retail, finances, industrial automation. I got to explain that one day. And marketing and nonprofit. So John Hanson has established himself as an engaged, empathic leader, which is one of the reasons why I wanted him to come to our show. I'm also an empathic leader, so I had to ask him to come join us. And he also loves talking about earning promotions and management opportunities due to his ability to work well with others. And if you're in any leadership position, it's always important to be able to know how to work well with others. Just my 2 cents there. But anyway, John has interviewed leaders in every continent. That's hard to sit there and claim that for some of us, because some of us are usually more specialized and focused in certain places. So every continent is impressive, and has addressed global summits, live conferences, virtual events, and as a keynote speaker. And so he is very, very aptly able to address the topic we have today. He also has a weekly radio show called The Heroic Experience, launched in September of 2021. And he is honored to have served as a senior leader for the Ohio Army National Guard. And he has an 8-year-old, 4, including a deployment. Sorry, maybe you might have to explain this when we jump into after the introduction.
Yeah.
And you also have an 8-year-old, an 8-year-old tour. Sorry, I thought you said 8-year-old as in a child.
I don't. I have a few, but we don't have an 8-year-old right now.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know. And then he also has an 8-year tour that included a deployment in Iraq in 2010, and his commitment complete in 2016. And you may have to explain that better than I did. Sometimes I butcher things, and it's just my quirky personality showing right there. But his topic today is scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. And this falls in the category of business owner mentality, because let's face it, as a business owner, you have lots of hats to wear, right, John? Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, totally. Yeah, so many.
Yeah. So we have to be able to switch off the employee mentality and focus on our business owner mentality, because basically you have to be able to know how to flip that switch, and you have to be clear on what your role is as a business owner. So today you're going to be talking a lot about business owner mentality, and I cannot wait to dive into this topic. So welcome to the Marketing Mindset Mastery radio show. And I am your host, Marie Mason, and I'm flying solo for a little while just because it's January and in the spring, and certain seasons just happen to have like transition times. So sometimes we have plenty of people helping in the show, and sometimes we have to fly solo, and I've just learned to roll with it and go with it. So that's part of being a business owner, even when you have a podcast, right? You have to wear many hats.
That's right.
So which is cool. So I did want to ask you about your 8-year-old tour. Because for a second there, I thought I was reading it wrong and thought it was an 8-year-old, and I'm thinking, what's an 8-year-old doing that for? Anyway, explain your 8-year-old tour. Was that that your deployment in Iraq, or?
Yeah, so the 8-year, when I signed up with the National Guard, it was an 8-year commitment, and that was back in 2008. And in that 8-year span included deployment to Iraq in 10 to 11. So that was
Okay.
the only deployment I had overseas. But I was privileged to start off on the enlisted side and work my way up to a leadership position. And a senior leadership position was the last place that I finished up at a headquarters unit in Columbus, Ohio. So I had the opportunity to work ground unit and then at a brigade headquarters unit where I was actually, at one point in time, I was the driver for the 1-star general for the entire state of Ohio for this unit. So I had the privilege of, working with boots on the ground, literally. And then I had the opportunity to really spend some quality time with a great leader. So I had kind of the whole gamut of experiences, plus going overseas. So it was a tremendously rewarding experience. I learned quite a bit. And on top of that, the benefits it provided to me, not just personal ones, but professionally, it paid for both of my degrees and enabled me to advance myself professionally and just give a really solid piece to a resume so that it made my professional background that much more attractive. Where the very first opportunity I landed when I came back from Iraq was with a Fortune 10 company that I don't know if I would have had as much of an opportunity without that military piece along with the work experience I had. So it was tremendously rewarding.
Excellent. And no, we really do appreciate anyone who sacrifices their careers in keeping our country safe, no matter what role it is. I think all roles are important when it comes to keeping our country safe. There's no small role. It
I
just
agree.
adds to the bigger picture. If
Right.
that's sort of a perspective I want to give anybody who's in the military and any industry, really, it doesn't matter if you're the paper pusher and sitting behind a desk and doing nothing but stamping papers and making sure they're correct, to even mailing pictures. I mean, it doesn't matter what small role you have or big role you have. When you're going to help work towards a company's mission and vision, it takes many moving parts. I don't know if that's something you would agree to, but that's what I've learned, even just being a business owner. And I'm not a huge business owner, I'm a small business owner, but it doesn't matter what size business you have either. You are going to have different people help you throughout your career. And to make any company work, it takes a lot of moving parts to help a business succeed. I don't know if that's something you would agree with or have found to be true.
Yes. And just because the pinky finger gets used less than the index finger doesn't mean that it has no value. As a matter of fact, the Amputee Coalition said that if you remove any one of the fingers or toes, it affects the function, the strength, and the flexibility of the other 4. So there's no part of the body that is inessential. And no matter what you do, if you do it to your very best, then that automatically improves the body as a whole. So it doesn't matter what your role is, you have a vital part to play because no pun intended, part to play, where if they don't have you, then we know that staffing is a tremendous challenge nowadays. Where's the company going to find somebody? They're not going to find somebody easily, and they're unlikely to find someone that has all of the experience that you have if you've been in that position for some period of time. So the role is not something you should get hung up on. It should be more of the impact that you have and realizing that when you do something to your very best, you're contributing something that's far more valuable than just the role itself or just the job description itself. It's that vital piece of the team and the organization, like you said, Marie, that is working towards that common goal, that common mission, that without you, it's that much harder.
Exactly. In case in point, so many restaurants and because of the I guess the virus that's been plaguing our whole world for the last couple of years. And I'm trying to be gentle on how I phrase that because YouTube is sensitive on those little topics and other platforms are too. So I'm being a little more cognizant of how I phrase things. But that virus has really caused a hurting on kind of many businesses because people are afraid to go to work. So a lot of people have been sort of forced to work from home and change how they work. So that's why our show came about, because we were helping people shift their thinking and how to help them pivot their business if they have businesses, and how they and how they conduct business online, because there's a really big difference on how you do that versus in person, brick and mortar kind of business. And I think we're going to be addressing some of that as well today. So long story short, my next question really is, before we jump into our topic, is what are you most passionate about? Because I like giving the chance of us having a little bit about your experience as a leader, because that positions you to the audience. Okay, he's got the cloud and the experience, but what is it? What is it passionate about? Why did you get started in the business you're in now? I'm going to ask that. Kind of a
Yeah,
twofold
for as
question.
long as I can remember, Marie, you touched on it at the beginning of when you were introducing me, was the empathetic part, empathy. It's something I was hardwired with. I remember as a kid that I identified so strongly, so easily with others. And there might be some people listening to this that could also identify with this when you're watching a show, whether it's now or as a kid, especially, and there's either embarrassment or pain going on with the character on the screen. Someone who's naturally strongly empathetic is putting themselves automatically in the shoes of the character, and it's almost too much to watch. Some of the things that were so strong emotionally, I would leave the room, find some excuse, getting food in the restroom, whatever, so that I could emotionally detach. Now as an adult, I've learned how to do that, believe it or not, in things that are, especially, I know, a true story or reflecting on a true story, and I am emotionally there. I have to separate myself consciously, saying, this is an actor. They are portraying something that happened, but it's not unfolding real life in front of me, because it would be emotionally overwhelming. So having that hardwired into me that I didn't realize was a skill until just last year, when I read that one of Now Discover Your Strengths by Marcus Buckingham. He identifies empathy as being one of a natural talent that we have. And that's where I realized, oh, that's why I've had this skill of working well with others. It can be attributed to someone who's a brown noser or always trying to, teacher's pet. But really, if you found success both in leadership and in an entry level role and everything in between, then it's really a skill of working well with others, because I have the ability to put myself in others' shoes. And having that as a strength has enabled me to have greater success in those areas. And because of that, having an entrepreneurial bent since I was a kid, where at 7 years old, I was selling poorly drawn and poorly colored drawings to my neighbors for a nickel, a dime, whatever they give me. My parents didn't tell me that. My grandparents didn't tell me that. I was just doing that. That combined with that empathy has really given me a compassion with legs for business owners. I can put myself into their world. I can understand the risks that they face, the rewards they experience, and the challenges in between. And that's where I'm super excited about what I'm able to do, because I can tangibly help business owners achieve what I call heroic success. And that's something that's actually quite attainable. Many businesses do. They just don't know that it is actually heroic in how they're doing their business.
No, that's perfect. So you said you can help understand their rewards, their challenges, and what was the other one?
The risks,
And
the
risks.
burdens
Yeah.
that they face of, that there is a risk being in business. Some there may be far more than others, but there's always risk involved when you do something that's outside of a
The norm.
traditional. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's why I did this podcast, simply because I wanted to help people understand. And a lot of it is just how you position yourself and how you position your company, and how you can make pivots and how changes to help you grow your business
Right.
during any uncertain times, whether it's a recession or whether it's a virus that's just creeping along the whole world and wreaking havoc. It could be any environmental reasons, whatever it is, could be any kind of changes in the job force, whatever it is that's going on. A business, in order to thrive, needs to make some pivots and changes, and kind of ebb and flow like a waterfall fountain,
Right.
falling down to the ground, the
Yeah.
waterfall kind of fountain. And I'm like, you just have to be able to kind of ebb and flow. And um, sometimes that means you may have to change how you do things, and
Right.
that's okay, and how you show up. So we're going to dive into the topic, which is going to, I think what we've talked about is sort of a good lead in to our topic, in a sense, because it's really going to help position the topic. So the next question on the topic, which is different, and just to remind everybody what the topic is, it's a scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. And one of the things I have seen people do when they're in the scarcity mindset is they panic and they have to grab every like opportunity that may not necessarily be the best opportunity for them because they want to be able to pay bills. So long story short, I don't know if you found that to be true as a, I guess you're also like a coach. I don't know if you have that role in there or not. It wasn't mentioned, but I assume you've had some kind of coaching at some point. Um, but what my main question regarding that is, what are the top concerns as a business owner face? We sort of talked about the rewards, challenges, and risks in business owner phases. So maybe we could touch on that a little bit more. And like I mentioned, that scarcity mindset and how to address the scarcity, and scarcity mindset would be a part of that, connected to that question, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. So scarcity, I use a word picture to describe what I think of when I'm mentioning a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. So scarcity mindset, let's start with abundance first. Abundance is where you set 7 bowls of food in front of 7 old dogs. They eat their food, they enjoy their food. It's very calm, very peaceful. Now, switch the scenario and you put 7 bowls of food in front of 7 puppy dogs. Oh, chaos erupts, because not only do they want all of theirs, they want all of everybody else's too. The reason why I use that description is, and they couldn't fit all of that food in their bellies if they wanted to. They can barely fit all of theirs. They're growing, so they'll eat it all, but they only want everybody else's too. A scarcity mindset says, if I don't get as much as I can as ahead of everyone else, then they're going to 2 things. They're going to take what I need, for one, and then for 2, I have room for everything out there. It's like saying that the pie itself, and no one company in the entire world can handle all of the pie of business. Not even Amazon can, not even close. So if their scale can't handle every single customer in the world, there's no way you can either. And so a scarcity mindset is focused on what you're trying to get ahead of someone else. It's unhealthy competition. Healthy competition drives innovation and creativity and collaboration. Unhealthy competition drives usually the race to the bottom, lowest price, trying to take market share from somebody else, when this is the slice of pie that you can manage and manage well. There's no way you can take all of the pie. If you manage this piece well and you grow it to this, or say this, those little bits of degrees are, in this economy nowadays, millions of dollars. So it's really switching your mindset from what don't I have, what is something else that I should be getting, and looking on what do I have, how do I make that better, and then how do I add something. And you touched on this, Marie. It was very good that you said this. How do I add something that's a good fit? You're right. Scarcity also says that take whatever you can get, because you don't know when the next thing is coming. And I understand, we mentioned kind of briefly how business owners, they have this full awareness of risk. They are the ones carrying the risk, especially if they have provide for their family, employees, suppliers and vendors that depend on them, the community, their already existing clients, new clients. They've got a lot of people, individuals, businesses depending on them. I understand the pressure, but I also agree with you completely, Marie. Why would you bring on someone that you know is not a good fit simply for the money? I know you would say, well, duh, John, because we need the money. Yes, money is something that you need to have to keep the doors open. But if it's not a good fit, I'm not even saying ideal. If it's not a good fit, then what you could be bringing on yourself will actually in the long run cost you more than if you decline something that wasn't a good fit. It can cost you some of your reputation. It can cost you time in fixing things. It can cost you in cost to fix things that should have been done right the first time. You'll find that oftentimes the ones who are the most difficult clients actually contribute the least to your bottom line, but require the most maintenance. And you also find that trying to acquire new is 5 to 25 times harder and more expensive than focusing on deepening, widening the base you already have. So scarcity is always focused on more, new, acquisition. It's never focused on retention. And retention and referrals, existing relationships, is where the most effective, simplest, most efficient sales and growth can be found. So that's where I would say in business, you'll see the marked difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. As far as the top concerns go, what we're seeing, I think we've talked about this, the virus, I think that only served as a magnifier or maybe have sped things up as a catalyst. Those things were already existent in the business world. I think it just put a magnifying glass over it or it sped things up. The reason I say that is Zendesk had a global survey prior to the pandemic that identified within the next 5 to 10 years. At the time, it was 2019. They surveyed 45,000 companies, 140 countries, and they found the market was going to be shifting away from brand recognition and price as driving motivations of why people buy. It would be shifting towards know, like, and trust relationships. Well, I think COVID accelerated that. I think we're coming out into it already. The Pew Research Group said that the number one group of consumers is now millennials and younger, and the workforce isn't too far behind. If it's not the largest group, it's going to get there pretty soon because of how many people are retiring out of the oldest working bracket, which are the boomers. So your number one concern then for business is of any and every size is staffing. That's your number one concern, no matter whether you're at an executive level or a management level, or you're on a team, you're like, we need more people because I can't wear this many hats and still get done all that I need to get done in a day. So no matter what size business you are, that's your number one concern. COVID simply magnified whether you had things going on right in your organization or you had some things you weren't aware of or didn't really feel like you had the need to address them. Well, now you do, because staffing is the number one concern for business owners, and rightly so. If you don't have enough people, you can't take care of the clients you have. If you have a hard time finding people now, what if you do grow? Where are you going to find those people? So it's a legitimate concern. Scarcity minded business owners are going to be focusing on how do we get more, whereas abundance mindset owners are going to say, all right, I have already got a great team. How do I make sure that they're so well taken care of that nobody else will come in and poach them? Believe it or not, I'm going to give you a little secret here, business owners. If you think that you have skilled team members that haven't been approached by some other company, either through recruiters or directly by another employer, then you are somewhat or very naive. In this tight market, you should bet your money on the fact that there are businesses looking at your people, especially if they have experience and knowledge that's valuable in their industry, in your industry. You had better believe that they are being seen as a free agent by other employers and by recruiters that are paid to fill vacant spots. So if you're not intentionally investing into those invaluable people that are on your team, scarcity mindset says, I'm just having a hard time finding people. I need more people. Everybody else needs more people. I got to get those people before somebody else does, rather than an abundance mindset that says, wait a minute. Yeah, we could probably use another person or two, but I really need to make sure that I take care of these team members that are like an arm or a leg. If I lose one of them, we're really hurting. As opposed to, it'd be nice to have 4 or 5 fingers or toes rather than 3 or 4. If you lose the arm, what difference does it make if you need to add a finger or 2? So you've got to prioritize based on abundance mindset says, what's most important in front of me right now, both your team members and your clients. You've got to take care of those relationships first and make sure those are solid before you look, how can I add to this?
Perfect. Now, I'm always teaching I have a couple of different companies I work. I have an event management company where I'm an event planner, and sometimes I'll even do things like event management if needed for certain special occasions. But I prefer doing the planning because it's much more less requirement of having more team members for that reason. It's cost saving. But anyway, long story short, I also am a business coach, a business mindset coach. And one of the things I've been teaching my students pretty much since November of 2020 was always have a filter when you're interviewing your clients. Make sure you have clarity of what it is you're looking for in your target market for your ideal client. and put them through the filter and make sure you have clear filters in place. What is a high priority client, medium and low? It's pretty much similar to what you were describing. And if they are not a good fit, learn to say no, because and like you said, it's going to cost you more in the long term keeping them. It could cost you time, it could cost you money, it could also cost you because you might have to hire somebody to help you with some pieces of it. Not to mention peace of mind, because those are the people that are usually the most difficult, as you also alluded to. And I think
Yes.
a lot of my clients, a lot of my students have found that to be true. And even in the past, I've allowed a client to hire me that I should have filtered a little bit more ahead of time, because I didn't realize the person wasn't quite ready for my services. So I had to change the scope of work to understand and help her understand you're not ready for that stage because you don't have XYZ in place. And I wish I had asked you this ahead of time before we agreed to work together. So that's something where you really do have to have a good, solid relationship and be able to do something like that with your clients, but also with your team members. So you have to be able to know what your team members' skills are as well, and making sure that they
Right.
can handle and they have the time to be able to do it. One of the things you talked about prioritizing with your team members and clients, but I also have people prioritize their time and their calendars.
Right.
Calendar management is important, but it's also prioritizing those tasks to help you achieve those goals.
Right.
And it's important to, I taught my students, it says, you need to figure out how many hours you really want to be working. Because I had someone say, I'm working 80 to 100 hours, and I relate because that's how I started in a month, right? And I'm like, or a week. And I'm like, you only really should be working maybe 40 hours a week in your business. So I had to give them a priority sheet and help them narrow down what is their top priorities, as far as what is their top priority tasks, where are they spending their time, are they working on more free stuff, free with free clients, are they working with more paid clients? And then they need to budget their time, and based on how much time it takes per task. So if they're clear about how much time it takes per task, then they need to be able to budget, okay, I can only work with so many clients to
Right.
fill that spot.
Right.
Because if you don't get clarity on how you spend your time with each task and how you spend much time working with each client, you're going to either overbook yourself or underbook yourself. And that's why that's one of the things I see a lot of business owners make a mistake on. And I know this may not be even in our tickle file, my little notes, my little cheat sheet. They already know I have one. So, because I always like to have like key points written down,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
I'd like to keep on track. But um, I think it's important for us to talk about prioritizing, because I think we don't do it enough as business owners. I think one of the biggest mistakes business owners do is that they either overbook, underbook, because they don't know how long something takes. So I
Right.
would like for you to kind of expand on that a little bit, on your perspective, because I know I just threw in my 2 cents, but I really want the audience to hear your perspective on that as well, if you wouldn't mind sharing. So,
Oh, no, it's spot on, because I actually just presented, I will be presenting at an International Leaders Summit just this coming Friday on that very
congratulations.
topic, the 22nd of January. It's a pre-recorded conversation I had with the organizer of the event, but it's something that I just actually put together last year and was going to be
Ooh,
presenting it for the first time to a business development group. But it turns out this leadership summit came up beforehand, so I'll be presenting it to the business development group in March. But I identified what the 3 most precious resources are that we have. And the first one I think people would recognize and agree is that time. You only have so much time in a day, and you really don't know how much time you've got in your life. So you want to make sure you're making a wise use of that. It's a finite resource. You don't know how finite, but you do know you've only got 24 hours in a day, and it would be best not to use all of those for work.
you
So
need to sleep, eat, and have family
sleep and
time or
eat, those are the
friendship
good
time.
things to
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So time would be understood. It was the other two that were really, as I put this presentation together, where I identified it, money is not the most precious resource. Yes, we'd like to have it. Yes, it helps things run, But if you're entrepreneurial in particular, or you're a good business owner, you can always create more of that. You can always find more of that. Money is not one of the three. So the second one that's actually more important than time is energy. You've only got so much of that. Think of energy like a bucket with holes in it. Energy is the water inside the bucket. It's running out whether you like it or not. The question is, how many holes do you have in your bucket? How big are they? And is anything contributing back into the bucket? So if you've got massive gaping holes, energy just pouring out because you're giving so much, but you don't have anything from yourself or especially from others putting energy back into the bucket, you will run out of energy. And burnout is a serious thing. And that's when you run out of energy. You still have time left, you still have money left, but you don't have any energy left. You are burned out. So that's where it's important to identify what holes do you have in your bucket? Where is your energy going? The exercise I do before in this presentation is we first identify, just like you said, Marie, where's your time actually going? Let's do a time audit. So I have them bring a stack of Post-it notes or sticky notes, we'll say, so we avoid the 3M trademark sticky notes. And on those sticky notes, I want you to write out the top 7 time users for your weekly tasks, or perhaps even daily, and give kind of an estimate about how many hours a week do you spend in those things. Now that you have identified where your time goes, because it goes, where is it going? Where are you using it? Are you using it as well as you'd like? After you identify that, now you look at your energy bucket and you say, all right, of the tasks that I'm doing, how many of those are ones that I enjoy doing, that aren't a drain to me in energy? But also you need to be looking at what ones contribute to the growth of the business, because even if I enjoy it, if it's not contributing to the growth of the business, then I'll end up spending a lot of time on something I enjoy that's not helping my business make money, and it will actually end up draining indirectly, because now I have the stress and the concern about where am I going to make the money, because I put too much time into things that I should be delegating off to someone else. So with the time exercise, we identify, all right, so there's really 5 designations you need to look at. If you shouldn't be doing it at all, you need to trash it, get rid of it. If it's just a waste and it you don't enjoy it and it doesn't help your business grow, get rid of it. On the other hand, maybe up the ladder just a little bit. The next one is to transfer. If you can hand it off to someone else that can take and run with it even better than you, or you've equipped them well enough where they can do it just as good as you did. Now you've freed up that time, you transfer it to someone else. If you've got to keep it, then you trim it. But you don't enjoy it, and it doesn't bring you in the greatest return for your time, but it's still something you need to keep tabs on. Then you need to trim it. You got to keep it, but you need to trim it as best you can. And the last ones, there are actually 4 designations. The last one is to treasure. If this is the thing you enjoy and it drives revenue, then that's where you want to be putting the Pareto rule to work. 80% of your time should be going to those tasks. 20% of your time should be going to the ones that you still have to keep tabs on, the ones that you trimmed. Everything else should either be delegated through transfer or trashed because it's wasting your time. Now we tie those tasks to your energy bucket. Now in the energy bucket, is it a straight drain? Meaning it's a waste of your energy. It takes energy. It doesn't contribute. Just like we did with the time waster, you need to get rid of the energy waster. You need to put a patch over that hole. One of those, the commercials where they slap that seal right over top of that big gaping water. Just
I'm still wondering how they do that, but anyway.
Yes, cover that thing up. Get rid of those.
Yep.
There are some drains you can't. Those are the duty drains. Those are the ones that are responsibilities that we have that we know take energy from us, but could be an aged parent, could be a sibling, could be a child, could be spouse, could be a significant other, a responsibility that we cannot hand off to someone else. Well, you need to be aware of that. That's a drain. And there's things you need to be doing to put energy back into the bucket intentionally, because you know that drain is happening. We'll talk about that real quick here in a short bit. So you've identified it. It's either a complete drain, plug it. It's a duty that you can't delegate off to someone else. Then there's ones that are distractions. Our life is full of distractions. There are all kinds of ways we can distract ourselves. Well, how does that do anything with our energy? Because it's connected to our time just going, our energy goes with it. It's not as draining as a drain, but it's a distraction that's kind of a drip. It's you don't feel it, you don't notice it, but a lot of drips add up. You want to plug that one too and figure out, be intentional with your time and where your energy goes. And then the next one after that would be, after you've identified that, then you need to find your desire bucket. What do you enjoy? What do you like to do? What gives you energy back in? And if you can tie this into what you do professionally, wonderful. Because now you're doing something, a task that's giving you energy because you enjoy it. And then the last one is the drive bucket. You know what your mission is. You know what you need to do as the business owner. You should to help your business grow or thrive. And that's where if you can find and couple where the 80% of your time is going to your desire and your drive, and I would say 20% to the duty part of energy, then you'll find that 100% of your energy is going to intentional things that you either cannot transfer off to someone else or that you enjoy and that drive you closer to your goals and your mission as a business owner. That's where time and energy are hand in hand and you can't separate the two. But there's one resource that's even more precious than the other. I did promise you about energy. The way that you put energy back into your bucket intentionally is self-care. If ever there was a time where business owners need to be aware of how they're taking care of themselves, and it's not selfish. I used to think it was because the word self is in it. It's actually the most loving thing you can do for all the people around you. You're automatically shortchanging everyone that you touch in your life. If you do not engage in intentional, consistent self-care, could be 15 minutes a day, could be an hour a day. You know what you need in order to function best. Sleep is one of those. There's a handful of them, and you probably know what they are. If I rattle them off, there's exercise, sleep, hydration, learning, hobbies, giving back. There's all different kinds of ways you can be
Maintenance,
laughter.
self-maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, maintenance. Oh, I have a business what's it call it? Business partner. And he and I have been working together even before we became business owners and partners, I mean. And one of the things that we do is every day we message each other with accountability because that's something we started off with. And we also check in with each other and make sure we stay on top of things. And one of the things we do also is we laugh every day. Every day.
Yes. Laughter.
Because
Yes.
it is so crucial if you don't. And here's why. And one of the things I said to him recently was one of the reasons why we laugh every day and help each other laugh each day, because we take turns with each other. Because somebody might be having a bad day, we want to be able to flip it around, so we help each other laugh it off and get out the emotional stuff. Is that it just puts a positive spin on it, but at the same time, it puts yourself in a better frame of mind when it gives that positive vibe, and that's something that you need to be able to reduce the amount of stress. It's like crying, but laughter is a little bit happier version of crying. So, but it's lethargic. It's lethargic to have that endorphins. It helps with those endorphins. It helps give you a positive energy, and you want to be able to create that. So, so that's the self-care edition I wanted to say was when you touch the laughter, and we're like, oh yeah, I do that like daily.
Yep.
My
Mayo
family
Clinic
does it
has
daily.
that. They have a study that proves that that's true. Yep.
My family and I try to laugh daily too, but usually it's at somebody's expense, so I don't quite like that approach. But anyway, usually mine, and it really makes it tough to be able to want to laugh. It's like, let's get out Mom Day. Okay, whatever. Whatever floats your boat, that's fine. I'm just gonna go with the punches. Sometimes I want to just go and sit there and say, can you do some other kind of joking around that doesn't involve me being the punchline? But anyway, long story short, that's my little 2 cents for today. So don't do it at someone else's expense, but instead find something that you both can laugh on, that you both like. Those emojis alone could be hilarious. Sometimes we'll go into emoji wars, just have fun playing around with and laugh at the crazy ones that pop up. Oh my gosh, do something that doesn't hurt somebody else, which is put you that way. Because it's not about hurting, it's really about helping you and helping others. Really what it boils down to. So that's perfect. And then one of the things I wanted to mention really quick was I tell my students everything you said, the same thing. And I said, I had something in mind and I wanted to say what it was. And if I can remember, I hope I can remember. But everything, literally, you were spot on. Everything that I said to them was, you need to know where you're using your time, what drains you, what energizes you, where to delegate. Because I keep saying, you can even go find volunteers. So if you want to fit, I don't know if you have any more. I think you have a third one that you wanted to mention.
Yeah.
And then I want to ask you afterwards if you could dive in and tell us how to find people, like whether it's that can help, that we can delegate to, would be a good one. And then we'll have a couple more questions, and then we'll be, oh my gosh, almost closing out the show. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's been almost
Now,
an hour.
conversations just fly when they're good, aren't they?
Well,
Yeah.
you touched on so many good points already, and we're not even done with this one section. So this is like an add-in section. So what's the third for the prioritizing? What's the third priority? I wanted to get into that. So
Yeah. The third one is relationships. You could only have so many close ones. And I thought, well, how do you identify what the criteria are for the best relationships to keep close to you? And I read a person that book was published in the UK. It's coming out in the US this year about how many close relationships you can have. And they identify about 1.5 for a close, intimate, usually a significant other or family, and then about 5 to 10 good friends, and then about 50 that you know that are, I would say, best friends to good friends. So about 50 good friends, and that could be both personal and professional. So you're talking about a circle that's only about 62, 63, 60 plus people. But if you were trying to identify, all right, so who are going to be the best ones where I only have so much time in a day, especially as a business owner, where am I going to intentionally invest into relationships? Well, this is where it was like the biggest light bulb for Marie is when I went back up the value ladder. How you identify which of those close best relationships you keep and invest intentionally into are the ones that give you energy and value your time. If they're not giving you energy, they're not draining the battery, they're not putting more holes in the bucket, that's okay. But if they're especially putting holes in the bucket, why are you allowing that in your life? Now, if they fall under the duty category where you can't separate yourself from that, at least limit how many holes that drills in your bucket. On the other hand, I am concerned that there are people in their lives that, because of a wrongly placed sense of duty, that they keep toxic relationships close that are drilling all kinds of holes and encouraging other people to drill all kinds of holes in your energy bucket. You really need to guard those, because just like our time, if you have clients that aren't a good fit, they end up taking time, stealing time from the prospects and the clients who are. And it's the same with relationships. I know I've got quite a few connections, but I've learned over just the last year or two to really help identify who are the ones that truly care about me. And when I went back up the value ladder, that's when I realized, the ones that intentionally give me energy, where it's not just about what can I do to help them, because I want to help others, but they're also focused on how can I help John. That's right. It's supposed to be win-win, a two-way street. And even more importantly, how many of those people value your time? And whatever your business is, your greatest responsibility as the business owner is to be helping that run well, if not grow and thrive, for the people that are dependent on you to do that. If the relationships you have personally and professionally don't value that, then I would not put them in that list of those relationships you want to intentionally invest into and add more of the same. That's what I would say. So time, energy, and relationships, and especially relationships that give you energy and value your time.
perfect. No, spot on. So valuing your time and your energy, and not to mention valuing who you are as a person and as your skills.
Yeah.
I would also add to that, because if they don't want to, if they don't recognize that you have value,
Right.
it's just not worth working or being even in a relationship with somebody who cannot value you as a real human being. I show up as a real human being. What you see is what you get. If you don't like it, there's the door. Don't let it kick you in the butt. Seriously, I've said it more than once on this show, and I can rub some people the wrong way, and have. And I don't apologize for that. I am who I am. If you can't handle it, tough. You don't have to be watching the show, just say, or work with me either. So, but everybody is built differently for a reason. And I really believe that you need to, part of that is knowing what your self-worth is. I think we're going to tie it back to that, knowing what your self-worth is, and knowing that you have the ideal clients or the ideal team members out there waiting for you. you don't have to settle for something less than you deserve. I think that's really the home point we're going to be driving in today. I think that's what it seems like the conversation. We probably had a whole different little skit discussion on it, but I really feel like this is important about prioritizing those relationships, especially like in your business, and even in your personal, because they do reflect what happens on, especially if you're working from home. Your relationships at home are going to reflect what's going on it's
Yes.
going to show up in your business side of things,
Yep.
especially if you're having like a bad hair day, for example. you know that's kind of just a figure of speech, but just to this as an example. So I know we were supposed to talk about more stuff about this, but I think it still is relevant to the business owner, um, and how the scarcity, we did touch on scarcity, and also on the, um, sorry, I'm trying to remember what it was, scarcity versus abundance. We really told in on the definitions of that, and I will still want to touch in, and we do have a few more minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops, if you're willing to stay a few minutes over.
Sure.
Then I believe we really can wrap up this conversation in a way that's going to tie everything together. But I really felt like it's important that people understand the relationships are important, and how to prioritize them. Because like you said, we only have so many hours in the day.
Right.
We can only invest our time in the people that are relevant. Those people that are begging for attention on social media, they have a time and a place. um, it doesn't mean ignore them, because those could lead into relationships. I've had clients call me on a social out of the blue from a Facebook group saying, I want to hire you. I'm like, I know you're the webinar queen and I want to hire you. And I'm like, great, let's talk. And we did. We ended up working together for 3 or 4 months. It was perfect. Just didn't start off that way, but it worked out perfectly at the end. And great person to work with. But I'm just saying that you have to be able to be discerning of your time and where you put everything. And that's, you really honed in on all of that perfectly. I won't get too far into that right now. I already did eat up a couple minutes, kind of summarizing it a teeny bit, but I wanted to hone in on a couple points there. So that brings me to another different kind of question, but it's also related. Two things. I really want to talk about how you accelerate the revenue in the consulting world, and what your skills or ability to credit your passion for your customer and employee experience. How do you unplug? And then also address, and I haven't figured out what this one is, but it says, what is the one of your big, hairy, audacious goals that you want to share with us today? And
Yeah.
before we even get into the big goal, I do want to ask you a follow-up question, which is, how do you find your how do you find your team members and or clients? So, because I think that's relevant to, in fact, before we go and addressing into the top concerns the business owner face, because I think that's what we pretty much talked about already. But before we talk about how the accelerated revenue unique is consulting world, I want you to go in, and we did a prioritizing, and then relationships, and hold on, I'm just taking notes while we're talking, and I shouldn't do that during a show, but this is just the way I roll, folks. Just bear with me. Prioritizations, and I also want to ask, but how do you find your clients? So I rather we talk about clients and how to find the clients, team members first, and then we'll jump into try to get to as many of it as possible.
Sure.
So does that sort of kind of helps paint the picture of where we're heading, and then we'll have a call to quick action step and a call to action afterwards, after the last 3 or 4 questions. So if you have about maybe 10 or 15 minutes to spare, we might be wrapping up a little bit later than expected. So
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So like we started off the conversation with, when you're talking about abundance versus scarcity, when you're looking at retention, you're focused first on retention before acquisition. All right. So how do you transition from, we'll assume that you as a business owner have done what we recommended and focus on retention first, not just keeping the people you've got. That's like keeping an arm attached, but strengthening it, working it, exercising that relationship. Like muscles that are attached but don't do anything, they atrophy. So you've got to exercise those relationships. I think some of the best ways to do it that have nothing but intentionality and time, no cost, is recognition, is sharing positive feedback, is passing along good news from a client that loved working with your team and specific members on the team, sharing the stories, the success stories. They may not know, the whole team may not know all the good things that are going on. All of those things are ways that you can help not only keep the arm attached, but keep it strong too. Now that you've focused on retention, how do you transition to acquisition in a way that's not going to be the 25 times as expensive because you don't have that kind of time or money? How do you do that? Well, it's the same way that you would also be lining up a candidate. You'd be talking to the team members and you'd be asking them really well-worded questions. What introduced you? How did you find out about us? How did you hear about us in the first place? And what were the reasons? Maybe there's more than one. What were the reasons that you decided to join us? Because we were unknown to each other at the time. Why did you choose to? And as you dive into their stories, you're going to pick out some things, and you'll probably find as you talk with multiple team members, if you have more than one or two working for you, that there's some common threads as to why they did. Once you've identified what those are, then you could be asking them, do you know anybody else in your life that isn't happy with where they're at, but they don't really want to take a risk going to somewhere new? Start there with the people who already work for you. Then I would go out to, and I do it in this order, your top clients. Find out who are the ones that are consistently providing the bulk of your revenue. Find out why they started working with you and what they're enjoying. Is there anything we could do that could improve the experience you've had with us? After you've done something with that information, especially if they say, yeah, there's a couple of ideas I have that could make things better, do what they suggest in a simplest form as you can. If it's complex, just take the first few steps. Now feed back to that. This is called closing the loop. When a voice of the customer, when they give you something, you do something with it, and then you share back with them what you did. You're closing the loop of feedback. Companies are horrible about this, of every size, not just small to mid-sized companies or enterprise. All companies really stink at this because there's only a handful that do it really well because they do it intentionally. When they give you feedback, do something with it, take a step or two of action, feed that back to the client, your best clients, and say, thank you so much for sharing that piece. Here's what we're doing and getting some things in place. Is there anything else you could recommend? And they'll say, no, what do you really like about what we do? What are some reasons why you just keep coming back to us? We really appreciate your business. They share that with you. Then you say, do you know anybody that you work with that could use what we do, that you might be hearing isn't totally satisfied with the experience they've got, but they don't want to risk trying someone new? They ought to have at least a name or two, or someone they could talk to that's a center of influence that does know this. You know what? I don't know, but a friend of mine, she's well plugged into the community. She would know. You're looking for a warm introduction on both the client side and the candidate side. It works the same way. You start off with the ones that have great relationships. Now, on the candidate side, I wouldn't go, nor the customer side, I wouldn't go to a vendor or a supplier of yours because they might be afraid you're going to poach their clients or their team members. But you also want to strengthen the relationship there. At least let them know how valuable what they do is to you doing your business. So those are all ways that you can explore. But here's a third one that I'd recommend that a lot of companies don't think of. American Express, when they were determined to completely flip the script on the experience that people have when they call into. So they changed the name. They didn't have a contact center. They didn't have a call center. They gave them a name, something like specialist or customer care specialist, something that didn't sound like it was phone based. They may have even been customer professional agents, something like that. The title didn't match the role intentionally. Then they didn't recruit out of people with telecommunications, call center, contact center experience. Instead, what they did is they recruited out of the hospitality industry and brought them into, because they knew the skill sets, the people skills, the working with, and people looking for, they want to be a part of where they're not just a face at a desk handling problems. They want to be part of a brand that is just driven by this 5-star customer experience. And you're vital to that. You're on the front lines. We want people like you. Do you understand what it feels like to be needed, wanted, seen as a special agent in what you do? So here's my tip. Don't look in your industry for people, look outside of it. If your industry, let's say, is insurance, don't look for people with insurance backgrounds. look for people with similar people skills, but in a different industry, because here's why. Two reasons. Number one, the other insurance agencies are all fighting over the same people who have insurance qualifications. You're not going to be hiring for the skill. You're hiring for who they are. You're hiring them for how they do their job, not what they do. You can train what they do. If they have a professional skill set, it doesn't matter if they're in insurance, if they're in banking, if they're in retail, you're looking for people that have those things that are like, I want that. Here's another tip. When you have a great experience with someone, and especially if they're not a vendor of yours or not a top client, if they don't work for either one, but in your day-to-day, while you're out shopping, whether you're out interacting, and you come across some great customer care, find that person's contact info, get a hold of them and say, you provided excellent service. I'm curious, are you open to exploring new opportunities? Because you want that person. You run across it so rarely. Why would you let that slip through your fingers? If they're happy where they are, wonderful. What if they're taken for granted? What if they're just like, this is the best I can find right now? And they bring that to the role. That's the kind of person you want to hire. So that's what I would say for both candidates and for clients. It's the same approach. You're looking for warm introductions, you're looking for referrals, and you're looking for the ones that are an ideal fit for how they do business, or if they're a client, how they interact as a client. Because the last thing you want to do is, just like you said, Marie, is just add any old client, because it's not going to be a good fit for you. It's not going to be a good fit for them, and you'll never convince them that it is. And here's what I would say. If you notice that one client in particular, or a handful of clients, are getting the ones that are always getting the grease, I would find a way to, believe it or not, I'm telling you this right now, I would find a way to figure out how to transition them off to someone else. That's right. You are going to do this as graciously as you can, but you're going to be finding a way where there's some reason, either you up your prices just for them, or you find some reason like, I'm thinking this company would be a better fit for you because of all that they have to offer. We're going to be really focusing on this, and I don't think this is going to be a long-term good fit for both of us. And we really want this to be win-win. It's basically a breakup letter, but you're doing it in a very kind way. Why in the heck would I turn down business, John? You're crazy. Okay. If 20% of your clients are taking up 80% of your time and your efforts, where could that 80% of effort be going somewhere else to someone who's a better fit? You need to be looking at time, resources, money, where your personnel goes, all of those things. If they could be going to someone who's a better fit for you, that brings in more money to your bottom line, then those clients that are paying you money are costing you more than they're bringing in. You've got to look at that in dollars and cents and time and resources allocated to identify, are these a good fit? Because imagine if you could free up 80% of that 80%, imagine you could free up 60, 75% of that time and put it towards acquiring new clients who are a good fit based off of warm introductions and referrals. Wouldn't that go a whole lot farther for your bottom line with people who and clients and candidates who are a good fit? You got to look at those things. So that's what I would say as some best practices for businesses of any size in any industry. Where do you start for finding and hiring, or finding and adding clients or candidates?
Perfect. No, that is spot on. You said team or clients. No, I'm just really, really focused on taking notes. You can take the girl out of the school 30 plus years later, but taking notes just doesn't seem to go away even when you are out of the school industry. So anyway, just my 2 cents there. But long story short, no, spot on, and follows exactly pretty much similar to what I am teaching my own students as well. Really, the bottom line is, who's a good fit for you? Work with them. If they're not, I tell them you need to learn to sit there, and I even ask them, is there somebody in our circle that you can that might be a better fit for them? And people say, no, I can't do that to them. It says, you never know, because they might have a good relationship with that person in the end. And you're doing almost a disservice not to farming out to somebody, even if you know them, even if you can't get along with them, it doesn't mean that other person can. You can't judge for them. You can't let them be the judge. I would just sit there and refer them and just let the other person be the judge for it, because that's something that people do, is they second guess. I don't want to farm out to somebody and give the bad way. But like I said, everybody's got a different personality, and the right person is really meant for you. It's also meant for somebody else if it's not meant for you. So just a thought process there. Great answer. And a couple more questions and we'll probably wind up in, I'm sorry, we're running a little behind today, but you're getting us, drinking us out of a fire hose today. So, and it all good stuff. And I cannot, like, I'm just eating it up. So anyway,
Wonderful.
and I want my audience to be able to really hear and hone in on this, because this is some topic we don't talk about too much. And it's something I really wanted to hone in. So the next one is how to accelerate the revenue in a unique way in the consulting world. Because whether you're a coach, a consultant, maybe even in the service provider world, I mean, what's a good way to accelerate your revenue? Because that's what really in January people are revving up and really trying to send out their marketing campaigns and really wanting to reach their target market and register new clients, right? That's a lot of people have finished up their work for the holidays, and they're coming off the holidays, and they're trying to rev up their growth, basically.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend, how to accelerate that growth, basically?
Yeah, our approach is a recipe that no matter what size, what industry, whatever company we work with, it's always going to be the same approach. Where can we save, minimize cost? Where can we magnetize your culture? And where can we maximize your cash flow? Those are the three pillars we look at. And we believe if we can successfully implement things, and not just while we're there, this is what I believe in strongly. Consulting should be something that's teaching people how to fish rather than giving them one. Two reasons for that. One is that we want them to be equipped to take ownership of it themselves. Well, that has the lasting sustainability to it. Secondly, it increases our bandwidth. If we have a same client, now a larger client with more things to implement will take longer time to do that project, but there should be an endpoint to it. There should be a goal to where you've got ownership of this and we're moving on to the next client that we can help, because we can only help so many at one time. So it should be both company taking ownership and running with it. And they don't need our assistance. They've been equipped. We've trained the trainer and now they're taking care of it internally, but it also frees us up so that we're not in one place for too long, because our mission can be used in every metro area in the US, let alone in the world. So we don't want to deprive other organizations of that same benefit. So you've got to look at those three pillars that I talked about. Minimizing cost. The old consulting model used to be just slash cost anywhere you can do it for less. I strongly advise against that. And that's not our model. You said, well, that's what you started off with. What we do is we bring in experts fractionally that address over 15 areas of overhead. And at no cost, we examine all of those 15 areas for our clients and say, in any and all of these areas that you would like a fresh look, let us do that for you. Let our partners do that for you, so that we can identify, can you be getting something with better service, with better support, better quality for less? Because if you can, you should. That's where we're looking for first. Where can you save in cost while increasing the quality? And yes, that's possible. Then the second one that's, I think, the most vital, because you can minimize cost and you can maximize your cash flow, not counting the beans, but making sure the beans are flowing as smoothly and as quickly as possible, removing the bottlenecks, adding some things that help speed that up. But it's the part in the middle that's essential. Magnetizing your culture doesn't just happen by flipping a switch and now the magnet's turned on. Believe it or not, you have a magnet. It's attracting and keeping the current clients and team members you have. Are those the team members and the clients that you want? If they are, then you need to figure out how to strengthen that magnet. If they're a mix, you need to figure out how to clean up the magnet. If they're not, you need to turn off the magnet and you need to start from scratch and build the magnet that you want. That's in line with the values that you say you have as an organization. You know, what's interesting, that banner behind me says that our mission is to elevate business to heroic success. Heroism, I found out, is the pursuit of two elements, and it's pulled at us, at humanity, from the beginning of time. Why does heroism pull at us? Why is it that blockbuster movies are always about this? Well, it's because it's innate within us. But it's not just for Hollywood, and it's not just for those 5% of companies that somehow magically achieve this almost heroic status. No, it's actually the intentional pursuit of two things. And heroism is basically the pursuit of excellence and a higher purpose. That's heroism. So many people and businesses don't know that they're already heroic in how they do their work, in how they run their business, because they don't identify that heroism are those two things. If those two qualities are already in your organization and your magnet is turned on to attract and keep team members and clients that align with that, then you've got a heroic magnet. And that's what the key piece is. That's what I specialize in, is the customer and employee experience and productivity, because with those pieces, that's your culture. You can't put posters on a wall and have a different culture. You can't pay for it. You can't train and develop it, because at the end of the day, your culture is whatever your brand is. And that's what your team members and your clients are experiencing every day. So that's where the main focus of our approach is while these other things are important, absolutely, all combined, they're a potent recipe for heroic success. They're award winning. Like you would take something to the fair and it would get a blue ribbon every time. But if you don't address the magnet of your company, then you could be doing those other things ultimately for no reason. So that's how our approach is. And I think businesses would benefit, whether they use our approach or not, or work with us or not. You need to look at those three pillars, I think, and especially the middle one. Start there. Don't just save costs so you can have more money, because it won't go as far if you have an ineffective or a weak or a bad magnet, and cash flow won't help you either. And you'll actually find that it's hard to sustain a growing cash flow if, again, that magnet piece of your organization is off kilter.
Perfect. So basically, you really cannot cut many costs means you could cut back on what you're spending into a certain degree, but at the same time, don't cut costs that's going to help your team and yourself grow, is what you're saying. To invest in their personal and business development, correct? So yeah, and that's really important, and that's something I do try to offer my team as well, as I do teach them the skills that if they don't have them, I do offer that as a part of the perks. So and having a business, I give them access to my business materials and say, look, I create a training program from that. So that works out great. So perfect. Now, maximize the cost, maximize the cash flow. What was the third one? Just so everyone, for the
minimize cost, magnetize your culture, and maximize your cash flow.
Okay, so magnetize your culture was the middle one, right?
Right.
Okay, making sure I heard it right.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. No, awesome. So I think we have time for maybe one more question, and then we can get into the offer, and we might have to get you to come back and talk about how you unplug and all that fun stuff.
Sure.
But that was just more if we had time for it. But the last really one that I really want to hone in is, what is the skills or ability that you have to credit your passion for the customer and employee experience? Because I think that's an important one we do need to touch on.
Yeah. We opened the show with it. It's that empathy. It's that ability to put myself in other people's shoes without thinking about it. Now, someone listening here might think, that's not my innate skill. No, but I would highly recommend that you read that book now, Discover Your Strengths by Marcus Buckingham, because there's 34 categories when he was working with Gallup. They identified that were strengths, innate ones. So we all have been born with abilities that are hardwired into us. What are the things when you're at work? And don't just think of these as professional skill sets. Think of these as personal and professional. What in your life can you do effortlessly without thinking about it, that would be an attribute that helps you and others personally and helps your company? Identify what those are. And usually people have anywhere from 3 to 5 of them. Identify what those are, because that might help you more clearly understand the value you bring to an organization. And especially if your company is looking for people to wear an additional hat or two, what other opportunities within your organization could you step up to that would be a good fit for you and help the company? So I would say identify what those innate strengths and abilities and talents are that you are either born with or you fine-tuned while you were younger. Because after you get to a certain point, it's pretty much hardwired in. You're only able to polish the strengths you already have, you're not going to be able to, no matter how hard you try, to add a new skill or ability. It's just not going to happen. So what you're hardwired with, if you can figure out what that is and how that helps your company thrive, then be looking to make that even better, or find out how you can use that to the advantage of yourself and your company. That's what I would recommend for someone. Identify what those strengths are. And I think it'll be an encouraging exercise for you of like things you didn't even realize were a skill or a talent that you do without thinking about are actually very difficult for other people because they don't have that skill or talent. And that's something you were either born with or you developed at an early age and mastered by the time you came to be an adult in the workforce. Don't take that lightly. Those things are invaluable to businesses in any industry of any size.
Yes, and that's perfectly put. Not much to add to that. One of the things I will mention is whatever your skill or talent is, whether it's innate, which is something you were born with, or something that you develop, make that like your main key selling point when you're doing that, when you're sharing that information with somebody. Some of the reasons why I got jobs the way I did was I had certain natural gifts and abilities, and it was skills that my employer was looking for. And so that's something that will give you something as an immediate edge when you're trying to make a great selling point. So that'd be the only thing I would sit there and add that might help someone, especially if they're trying to get work or be hired. So perfect. So the quick action step that you want to do really is a quick tip that you want them to walk away with. And then the call to action is what your offer is. So really quick, what is the quick tip you want to tell people that they can? I think pretty much what you just stated would probably be considered the action step that you want them to walk away with. But is there something you want to share with as far as your call to action or anything else you want to add to that?
I would say, I've done a intentional, determined effort to grow my social media family, particularly on LinkedIn. So I would say, if you're listening to the show and you want to be plugged into content that's coming out daily, that's designed to add value, whether you're a business owner, entrepreneur, whether you're a manager, whether you're in a specific role within an organization that's not quite in leadership yet, find me on LinkedIn, follow me there. You'll get all kinds of content. And the other one would be to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Accelerated Revenue. That way you'll get access to every show as it comes out, as we have that weekly show, The Heroic Experience, that is geared towards business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, and managers, so that you can learn about other people's stories and glean from their lives, what worked well, what they learned that they would have done differently, and then how they might be able to help you in your professional and personal journey. So those would be the two things that I would recommend.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you for that. And do you have a specific time that you release that show, or is it just like when they can just go research it?
It comes out every Friday.
Okay.
So long as we have the show, like around the holidays, there are weeks that we skip because of the holidays. But other than that, every Friday it comes out on our YouTube channel. It also comes across on all the major download podcast channels. So if you like to listen to Spotify or Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, it's available there too.
Perfect. Is that your call to action as well? Is just to go and subscribe to
Yeah,
the channel?
subscribe,
Okay.
follow the content, get familiar with who we are and what we do. And there's all kinds of ways that from there, if you want to dive deeper, all kinds of avenues to where you can learn even more.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. I'd love to have you back again if you don't mind. I love repeat guests because it's so much more fun to bring back someone we're familiar with. And the audience actually has begged me in the past to bring in more repeat guests. So you might get asked to come back again. So that's okay with you.
Yes.
But definitely go and check out the Heroic Experience show on the YouTube channel called Accelerated Revenue Channel. You don't want to miss Friday's episode. And I actually have my podcast on the Marketing Mindset Mastery that's going to be released on Thursdays. Normally I will be doing it on Thursdays at 11 a.m. And I'm trying to do it ahead of time just because it's going to free up my time to help serve my clients. One of the things, I don't want to give up my podcast because, like you said, give up things or scale back. So I'm freeing up my schedule so I have more time to devote to my clients and my team and my students and any other wonderful things like my book coming out soon. So there was Bubble Bear Special Problem, by the way. And it's a great children's book. But long story short, like you said, give up some things or scale back or outsource to things that to free up your time so that you can focus on the things you love doing is what really the theme is for today. And do it with a grace and empathy, because you really need to understand the other person and where they're coming from, even if they don't always understand themselves sometimes. Kind of sums it up. Thank you so much, John, for being a wonderful guest and helping share valuable tips to our audience and help them grow themselves and their business here on the Marketing Mindset Radio. Actually, it's not radio anymore, it's a podcast. I got to remember to change that. I am dealing with lots of typo gremlins. There we go. I keep forgetting to double check some of these little things. I don't know, something I need to outsource. Anyway, something for someone else to pick up on, and message me if you do like that. So long story short, our topic today was literally having a business owner mindset, but specifically it was focusing on sorry, I'm trying to get back to where it was, but scarcity mindset and versus abundant mindset, because you need to know when you need to be able to focus on growing and when you need to not worry about things that you can't control. Pretty much simply summarized. So long story short, and you really just need to be able to understand that you can grow regardless of the situation, and you can outgrow your situation. That's really the main point, right? We can outgrow our current situation, and cannot wait for you to take advantage of it. Go to our YouTube channel, we're going to be uploading things to the Liberty Virtual Solutions website soon. We're just taking time adding content, because I don't know about you, but websites are kind of picky about how much content you throw on there. So anyway, it's going to take a while for it to show up on there. But do go to Liberty Virtual Solutions over the group over in Facebook. We'll be posting it there as well as on the YouTube channel. So you will get all the information up there when we release it. And we should release this episode no later than March, but hopefully beforehand. So thank you so much. I encourage you to take the offer there, and then also do check out our merchandise. We have merchandise, we have hats, we have mugs, which by the way, the logo is changing. And so we also have, it's called the Marketing Mindset Mystery Shop. And every time anyone gets one of our back to school backpacks for the school year of 2021 to 2022, you can just message me privately at Marie V. Mason, because I don't have everything situated on my website for that, handling that. So message me privately. I will send you a PayPal link. You can purchase a $45 backpack, and then let me know which lucky teacher in the US you want to send a $5 gift card to help them towards their school supplies this year. That's our way of giving back to the school community, and I will be happy to send that to them as a thank you for being a teacher during all of our craziness during the last 2 years. They need to have some big thank yous, let me tell you, for opening up the schools this year. So join us next week for our next episode for great tips, ideas, and how-tos make your marketing and mindset work for you. Our guest next week will provide more tips on how to set up your business for success. We stream live every Thursday at 11 a.m., though we are going to be recording more ahead of time just so we could free up more time for space, but you will still get a recording and you'll still feel like it's going to be a live presentation. Trust me, it's going to be just wonderful to experience regardless. And it'll free me up to be able to answer any of your questions during that time as well. So if you have any questions during the show, I'll be happy to answer them. But please do make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification button so you don't miss another show. Till next time, this is Marie Mason, your host, saying goodbye for the Marketing Mindset Mastery podcast, along with our guest, John Hanson, and that ends this week's show. So until next time, y'all be safe. Bye.